I'm looking forward to seeing what that secondary looks like. And then we got some sound from Dan Campbell on the young Bucks in that secondary. Pete, let's play that.
Okay, there you go. There.
There's an attitude that comes with playing defense, and
Mike's out.
every good defense, you got to have that. There's got to be an aura about it. There's got to be you got to have something, and you can kind of feel that right now.
Yeah, in every defense, you do have to have that aura. And it seems like that's what they tried to build in the offseason. They know what the secondary was last year in the playoffs and at the end of the season. And they know how inconsistent the defensive line is. You add DJ Reader, you add Davenport, you add some more key players, and then you get some players back. And I think this year has been a developmental year in the offseason. Branch being one of those guys that they're going to develop and have back from injury.
Yeah, and he went into the rookie cornerbacks. That's the one I wanted to play for you.
Too, Tommy.
And here, that's the one we were looking for. Here we are.
The fact that Arnold would get up there and challenge, big, physical, pretty smart guy. Just, time on task. He's got to learn. And Rakestraw's the same way. Rakestraw's pretty instinctive. He got our one takeaway yesterday. Got a ball on the ground, which is great. So look, those guys are. A work in progress, but after 2 days and a spring, we like where they're at.
The thing I like about Dan Campbell at this podium, and I've said it time and time again, and I'm going to continue to say
How big is that podium, by the way?
He's a big guy.
That thing is huge.
Yeah, 100% pause on that one. But it's going to be interesting when you see Aaron Glenn at the podium. Yeah, he's a much smaller guy. So that's, I think, when you really get a chance to see how big that podium
That thing engulfs Dan Camp.
I'm going to leave you alone.
Last year he knocked the one down. That's why they went with the extra large Meyer one this year.
Yeah, they definitely want that Meyer podium. But he's always truthful at the podium. I think that's what you come to admire and appreciate. He's transparent. He doesn't blow smoke when it relates to any player. A lot of times you see these coaches, they'll get up there to that podium, and they'll get to talking about these rookies and say, oh, man, this guy is the greatest thing since sliced bread. You should see how fast he gets in and out of his breaks. This guy really could be special. Then say, hey, look, man, they retain the things that we taught them in spring. They're still getting better, and it could be something there. I think that way you have an honest assessment, and you have an honest what you're expectation from these rookie players.
Yeah. 2 points for me. One, we talked before the show. I caught up on Hard Knocks, and watching their staff talk to the press, talk to people, and handle things, it was embarrassing. And then when you watch our guy, Dan Campbell, as well as Brad Holmes, the way that they speak to people in person, on the phone, at the podium, we are truly blessed as Lions fans to have this culture and admin completely flipped upside down from what we've experienced our entire lives. Now, the thing before it, you talked about the lore.
Yep.
And what the offense has created over this last 2 years is lore. Offensive line grind and pound you into submission lore. One of the top 5 wide receivers, best tight end in history for a rookie, and now a running game that goes right along with it. What we've never been able to establish so far with this current Detroit Lions team is defensive lore. And we had a real good run-stopping defense last year, but we got torched in our secondary. They have taken the steps between DJ Reader, between the off-season, mid-season signings in the secondary, and then doubling down in the draft. They have the potential to be a top 10, top 12 defense. And even better, I think. I think that if Jack Campbell can really light it up and be the player that he was drafted to be, this could be a top 8 defense. And now you're worrying about this defense. Now there is a lore to this defense. And I couldn't be more excited about that aspect. Talking about some things later on in this, Brian Branch, the moving around of guys, it's going to be scary for offensive.
No doubt.
It's a strong word, but you're right. If Jack Campbell could be anything near what they thought about him when they drafted him last year out of Iowa, then this defense couldn't be special. Part of the reason why this defense will be special is defensive line coach Tyrell Williams,
Tennessee,
the best defensive line coach. We got him in from Tennessee. Dan Campbell has some things to say about his good buddy and great defensive line coach.
Pads haven't come on yet, but have you seen any dividends paid by the Terrell Williams hire yet?
Well, yeah, I have already. But there again, without pads on, I don't want to go too far. I just know fundamentally I already feel a difference in what we're doing with our D-line. Where we're striking, our ability to shed is starting to show up, man. I feel like we're, just these little things that we emphasize, that he's emphasizing, are showing up. So, yeah, I do see it.
Hey, thanks to Al Karsten, our football guy, a good friend of the show, for that audio. But I loved when they got this guy, Terrell Williams. Not only was the head coach of one of the Senior Bowl teams, but this is a guy Dan Campbell was friends with for a long time and coached under Mike Vrabel. He was Mike Vrabel's right-hand man. And to me, Mike Vrabel should be an NFL coach right now. I don't know, but took the year off. I don't know why he wasn't hired. I don't get it. But nonetheless, we move on. To have this guy added on with Aaron Glenn, it's just a different way, Bray, to attack with the defensive line. He's going to make these players that much better. You bring in DJ Reader, already a veteran. They're going to coach him up a little bit. But it's the guys like James Houston. Those are the guys, Josh Pascal. Those are the guys that are going to learn the most from this guy. And he chips in on the running game. He's the running game coordinator as well. It's just great. The coaching staff is second to none, if you ask me.
Yeah, the more you can do, and it definitely seems like Tyrell Williams can do a lot for this Detroit Lions team. You know, at the end of the day, Maz, when you have an offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator, their job is to put the offense and defense in the best situation. It's to come up with the best scheme for the talent. It's to design the best plays. It's to see what we're going against in the opposition and make a game plan based off of that. The offensive coordinator can only do so much. A defensive coordinator can only do so much. So it's only so much that Aaron Glenn can do. Now he has the players. You look at the players that you talked about, the offseason acquisitions, and Amik Robinson, or whether it's Carlton Davis II that you talked about, Davenport, DJ Reader. Now you bring in a Tyrell Williams to coach up a DJ Reader, to coach up a Aiden Hutchinson, to be drill specific for their position. You mix great coaches with great offensive coordinators. Now you're getting the best of both worlds. Now you're talking Super Bowl.
And not only accomplished assistants and coordinators, but so many of these guys are former players where they're on the level with these guys. Now you already have a completely revolutionized culture here in Detroit. So they've seen what guys fit. I mean, Pleasant's gone. You know, there's some guys that they got pushed out, and they just keep bringing in these guys in the same vein.
Kudos to Dan Campbell for that.
What's that?
And kudos to Dan Campbell for that.
They haven't skipped a beat, despite the fact that they've had to get rid of a few coordinators. They have stayed in that same zone where it's guys that have practical experience, that guys that have had their hand down in the mud. That garners so much respect from players. We've seen ad nauseum, you know, the annual ritual of Dan Campbell doing up downs with the rest of the team. I'm watching a clip. We got a guy driving in on a four-wheeler a few years ago. You know, Matt Patricia was an embarrassment. When you look up and down this coaching staff, they not only have the respect of the players, but they have the respect of this city. And just the complete transparency up and down of this staff and this administration, it's just such a breath of fresh air, and it encourages it throughout the team, from the coaches to the players on down.
You were talking about Patricia rolling in a four-wheeler. If you go way back, don't forget in the late 90s. Don't forget, never Wayne. Wayne Fonts had his golf cart.
Bobby Ross with the
the motorcycle gang of Marty Morningweg, Matt Millen. You forget about those guys riding their Harleys. Right. Riding their Harleys. As a matter of fact, they heard a phone ring one time. I know a lot of people have heard this story. We're all at practice, and it's out in Saginaw Valley. And the rule is, hey, everyone shut their phones off, whatever. So a phone goes off, and these guys, that's it. They call off practice. They get on their Harleys, and they ride off into the sunset. I'll never forget it as long as I live. I mean, we all laughed. We're like, what the hell? I mean, and, of course, they failed.
100%.
Miserably.
Of course.
Laughing starts with L, just like losing, and that's what they were doing. Another thing that we would be remiss to say today, Tom Masaway, is your side of the ball, your actual position, the kicking game.
Oh, my.
Michael Basley torn hamstring out for the season. This just came in about 3 hours ago.
Yeah.
Michael Basley is out for the season after sustaining a leg injury at training camp. We now know it to be a torn hamstring, tore it off the bone, as they say. Now it gets interesting, because now you're left with an individual that never kicked in college, that never kicked when he was on the roster in the NFL, and I understand he's made a 62-yarder at Ford Field, but he's never done that in front of 70,000 fans. He's never done that in front of the opposition. He's never done that in this space, even in college. So now are you worried that they got rid of James Turner from Michigan? Now you no longer have another guy if you don't necessarily trust this guy. It all sounded good when there was Money Badger and big leg Michigan Panthers. Now are you nervous?
What did I tell you from day one?
Keep 3.
I said keep him.
You did.
I said keep James Turner. They let him go to the Green Bay Packers. I don't know what he's going to do there against Anders Carlson. We'll see. But they are bringing kickers in as we speak. They're there all day today at Allen Park. They will have another kicker by the end of the day to compete with Big Lake Jake Bates.
I don't like how familiar this feels. This is something that we've been dealing with every year that these two guys have been in Detroit. Felt a lot different this offseason. You know, we bring in an undrafted free agent, a guy that we're familiar with here in Michigan. And then you go out and you get Big Leg Bates. But losing Badgley, a guy that had just that little scrap of confidence, because we know that Dan doesn't have any confidence in any kicker right now.
But he likes Badgley.
Well, and that's the thing, is he did like him enough to the point where you got a guy in Bates and you got a guy in Turner that he was not willing to go forward and say, we're hoping that this is the guy. Badgley was kept around despite their low confidence in him. So losing him is a little more of a blow than I think Detroit fans want to admit. But Big Leg Bates, he's been tested in real games, in professional atmosphere. I like bringing in a guy like that where you just don't know what that ceiling is, because it could be huge. At the same time, all the rest of the also-rans that they're going to be bringing through here, they're all on the same footing.
Yeah.
So I think at this point, you got to go forward with Bates, and if he doesn't work out by week 2, then you go through that pool of sub-talent that the NFL always supplies.
They're going to go on fourth down a lot. You know that.
Oh, yeah.
But you do need a guy to kick you extra points. And you do need a guy that you could depend on just in case it's 4th and 9 and you need a 45-yarder or a 40-yarder.
Yeah.
You got to depend on him.
So let me ask you guys both a question here. We've always talked about this last season and the fact that we went for so much on 4th down and didn't take kicks when they were there because of our lack of confidence in our kicker. But I think it's twofold. It was not only that, but it was also a lack of confidence in our defense. So despite not having an upgraded kicker now, we clearly have an upgrade at our defense. So I'm curious, if we had a kicker that we had a lot of confidence in here in Detroit, or even going in with Bates, do we kick it a little bit more and trust in our defense?
No, I think Dan Campbell is very confident in who he is in terms of going forward on 4th down, going forward in terms of knowing the yards, additions. What does he think? The defense will be revamped. I think they might even go for more nowadays because the offense has gotten better. They believe the defense to be better. You want to have good kickers. You want to have an option too. And then sometimes with these things, when you start training camp, you got a lot of these guys that aren't on teams, so they're kind of in the same pool of guys that can kick a little bit, maybe not. Sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes you're lucky in those pool of kickers, man. Like sometimes you get guys that are in the right time, the right frame of mind, and they're just the right guy for the job, and they're ready for the competition. So I think that you'll definitely be able to find somebody in this pool that can push the competition with Bates, and I think you'll be in good hands. But just asking about having a kicker and a better defense, I think Dan, for the most part, and I could be wrong, man, I think he is who he is as it relates to going forward on 4th down. I don't think it relates to having a better kicker or not. I think those decisions are solely in his mind and not necessarily predicated on having a Honey Badger or having a Jake Moody out in San Francisco.
You got 10 yards. You got 4 plays to make it. He believes in that team that they can make 10 yards in 4 plays. And you want 7 points and not 3. That's his goal. That's the goal of every NFL coach, except they don't have really the guts that this guy's got. And, a lot of people say I'm wrong, and that's fine. You could look at football your way. I'll look at it my way. I always loved when a coach rolled the dice on 4th down. I especially love when this team does it, because I don't think there's a defense out there that could put 11 guys on our 11 guys.